Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a draft rankings and a running backs episode. In this episode, we're going to be discussing with draft strategies what draft strategies in fantasy football have or give you a better chance to win a fantasy football championship. There have been a lot of draft strategies that have become very popular over the past couple of years. We're going to discuss some of those and talk about which ones are effective and which ones aren't as effective. And when it comes to the top running backs in fantasy football, we're just going to discuss, in my opinion, the top 25 running backs at the position next year for fantasy football. Talk about scenarios, talk about situations that these players are in. And with running backs, I feel like more than any other position in fantasy football, volume is key. Because you touch the ball 20 plus times as a fantasy running back and you have a superstar-esque workload. And those workloads can seriously change fantasy football seasons because you really don't know what's going to happen when uh, one of the best running backs in the league starts touching the ball damn near 30 times a game. You're probably going to lose. I'm not going to lie to you. But, I mean, I feel like running backs are a lot harder to come by. The good ones, at least in drafts this year, I feel like this year it's more of a receiver-oriented fantasy football draft class. But we have to see until the season gets there. Preseason fantasy football talk, you know what it is. Let's get into it. Let me stop blabbering right now. Hope you guys enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Redzone Report. I'm your host, Chris Marcano, and it just feels good, so good to be back in front of this mic talking about fantasy football. In that first episode, we had the drafts and don't drafts and the rankings at the quarterback position, and we also had what when should your league mates draft and what are the best positions to have in drafts to obviously up your chances of winning that coveted fantasy football championship. Today we're going to be breaking down many draft strategies. I'm going to give you a couple. For example, we're going to talk about zero and hero running back and just a whole lot more. And then we're going to run through the top 25 running back rankings. Just let you guys know that every single time I talk about fantasy football, from here on out, what I did in the past, what I'm doing in the future, I'm not I'm not doing dynasty. I'm not talking about dynasty. It's just straight PPR PPR format, full point PPR, not half point. And when we talk about drafts, we're mainly 12-man drafts, some keeping 10-man drafts in the back of our head with some consideration. But you know what we're mainly talking about. And all this, I've put research, my own research into some of this. You've been using many NFL.com. I've been using Fantasy Pros. Just giving you an example, getting as much information as I can grab just to try and provide as relevant information as I can. But enough blabbering about what I'm going to talk about. Let's actually start talking about it. The draft strategies, man. I feel like, draft strategy number one this year in fantasy football. Draft Aaron Rodgers with their first round pick. Don't actually do that, but I feel like there's always someone who punts the draft, and they're always biting themselves in the ass because of it. And seriously, a good draft strategy can set you up prepared for a championship run. Not necessarily saying you have to stay with that team, that entire team that you draft. You have to stay with that team. You can't make any trades. You're not locked down to that team. But a great draft strategy can really help you flex your team and maximize your opportunity at a championship. So let's get into some of the strategies. The first strategy, and a strategy that has been very, very popular in recent years in fantasy football with drafting, it's the zero RB strategy. It's just ignoring, just not giving a fuck about running backs in the first 5 or 6 rounds. Seriously, you load up on receivers, you try and get the best tight end on the board, whether that be Trey McBride, whether whoever that may be, and getting an elite quarterback, Lamar, Josh, Jaden, and just not worrying about running backs and just trying to get late round value. And that's where you draft your running backs and just stock up from rounds like 7 to 10 stack up as many high upside running backs as possible. This strategy came first when workhorse running backs became very high value and very high volume, and they started suffering injuries. Many people were like, "Oh, why am I wasting these high value picks on players that are going to get injured?" And that's when the zero running back strategy came to fruition. Injuries and volume shares always make the running back scoring just all over the place. And while it felt like in 2024 running backs had a relatively healthier and they had a great year, the durability isn't sticky. We all know that. We can't count on health of these players year in and year out. There's not many running backs who can handle 250 or more touches a year and just not get injured and just keep flipping that coin of the chance of injury. And I mean, if you do not believe in the health of the running back, if if you don't like drafting if you don't like drafting players if they're not fully healthy, if you're skeptical, excuse me, about drafting players when they're not healthy, the zero running back draft strategy might work for you. There's still a lot of value in those middle rounds. You have at the end around the seventh, you have Caleb Johnson, R.J. Harvey, Tony Pollard. Those guys might go a couple rounds earlier in the sixth, maybe even the fifth. The guys like Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears. It works if you can find if you can find the right breakout guys, because there are guys every single year who break out in that middle round. But the thing is, dropping and waiting way too far can can cost you an arm and a leg with running backs. And to be honest, the zero running back strategy might be the most popular in fantasy football if you have a draft strategy going into drafts. But it could be costly because there if you do stack up on just receiver, I feel like then it might get to a point like you already have three receivers on your team and two receivers on your team. There's a chance that you might flex. I mean, excuse me, might reach for that flex option with the receiver. There's a chance you might reach. There's a chance you might reach with the tight end. Chance you might reach with the quarterback. And there's always I feel like you could be missing value because I really do love that fifth round for running backs. I feel like there you can find a lot of great running back two value in that fifth round. You are missing out on a lot of value by just not drafting running backs. And then uh they're always like what you're asking for when you draft zero running back. Like the shit could just blow up in your face, but that's just the risk you're taking. And to be honest, if you believe that risk is worth taking, go ahead and draft zero running back. I'm not going to tell you what and what not to do. If you feel confident, if you've done it before, go ahead and do it. But there's something very similar. You have a modified zero RB. You never really know with the full zero RB strategy, which I was interested when I heard about the modified zero RB strategy, which is instead of just waiting till rounds like 6, 7 to draft, you get a running back in the RB dead zone, just like four, round five. Instead of waiting a couple more rounds, you do get a number one guy who could get a lot of volume and still be a top 10 back. I feel like that it balances safe running back volume with a decent amount of upside. Grabbing a running back in the fourth to sixth round reduces the risk of just late round busts because wide receivers this year are more than ever this year super deep, and there are less running back ones coming up in middle rounds than there was before. The modified zero running back strategy kind of appeals to both worlds where it's still gonna prioritize that wide receiver, um getting a lot of wide receiver depth, but still getting value with running backs. You have got guys like Travion Henderson or Aaron Jones are like perfect for the modified zero RB strategy. I like the modified zero RB strategy. I mean, before while I cover all these strategies, I feel like I just want to explain maybe a little better. I'm talking about these strategies not to tell you what to do, but It depends on the way you play fantasy football and what you think is going to fit your team best and what you think is going to help you win your championship. I'm just laying out all these options because they provide more dynamic for your fantasy football drafts. I'm just laying out all the blueprints. It's just a matter of you picking up whichever one is going to fit the construction of your roster. And then the Hero RB, my personal favorite draft strategy. I've been drafting Hero RB. I drafted Hero RB last year in a lot of my leagues, and I did as well a couple years before that. Getting one elite running back in the first round or maybe even the second round, and then just not worrying about it until later, until you get your receivers, your tight end, and maybe your quarterback taken care of. Uh, it it provides stability with that running back one, just week in and week out. You know you're gonna get 20 plus points out of that position. It still allows you to just still in the second round, in the third round, get receivers who have wide receiver one upside because I feel like there's a lot of wide receiver one upside guys in that second, third, maybe even fourth round. Still getting you could get an elite, if not a very, very, very good quarterback. Getting an elite tight end because that we all love that positional advantage at the tight end position. You get a high volume back, avoid the RB dead zone, which has high bust rates, and you could just wait to get just guys with high upside later in the draft. You could just use zero RB principles. The major risk is just like injury. Like if your running back one does go down, yeah, you are cooked. But I mean, it's a risk being worth the take. Like you can't you can't not take risks and not and expect the fantasy football championship. You always got to take risks, and if they don't work out, you just gotta okay, I had to take that risk in order to up my chances of succeeding. We're just gonna try again next year, even better, in my opinion. But you have people who get one running back or no running backs, those zero running backs, hero running back. You have a lot of people who still do heavy running back or also known running back, where the first two rounds you hammer your running backs and you don't worry about that at all. And then that's when you're getting your receivers. The one thing about heavy running back and the strategy is it really only works if value falls dramatically. And I mean like multiple elite backs drop into the first and the second round. Because yeah, there are a lot of really good wide receivers in fantasy this year, and it's a very deep position, but it's always good to have depth at the wide receiver position. I feel like that is the most valuable position to have depth wise. So, which strategy would you ask me is gives you the biggest edge? I feel like this year, like I said, feel comfortable drafting however you want to. But I feel like this year, I love the hero running back strategy. Even if you're drafting at the beginning or the end of uh your drafts. If you're drafting near the front in the top four, top six, still get Bijan, CMC, Gibbs, or Saquon. And then if not, I would still, even though like the back half of the first round is mainly just receivers, I would reach for a running back just to surefire your running back one position. Get a guy like I'm gonna say Ashton Genty because I'm gonna overdraft Ashton Genty in literally every single league because I love Ashton Genty. Um, or the modified zero RB strategy because it's just like it's basically a dumbed down version of the hero RB strategy. You're just waiting a little bit longer to get that running back one, and he might not be as good, but he's not going to be as bad as if you run zero running back. But like I said, it's however you feel comfortable drafting. It's however you prioritize fantasy football. I know a lot of people prioritize receivers, tight ends, week weekend matchups more than just running backs and high volume. But I'm a slut for running backs and high volume, so I'm always going to try and hammer my value with them. Let's get into this ranking. Let's get into these rankings, man. Enough fucking blabbering about oh what you should do in your draft, blah blah blah. You guys aren't gonna listen to me. You guys are gonna draft whoever the fuck you want. You guys are gonna see George Pickens sitting there in the third round. See a lot of value with other running backs. Maybe see the best tight end on the board. Maybe see the best quarterback on the board and still just George Pickens because he's nice. You guys aren't gonna listen to me, whatever. I'm just kidding. I'm really just kidding. I hope you guys do take some of my advice for what it's worth, at least. And like I said, you don't have to take it and apply it. Just keep it in the back of your head and just think about it. Let's get on with this ranking. We're gonna go 1 to 25 like we did last week. We might go with the receivers and the tight ends. We might go from the back first, but we'll just see how we're feeling. We're number one, quite obviously, the number one running back in fantasy football this year is Bijan Robinson. He was on my team last year, and Bijan Robinson, I just want to say thank you for everything that you did. It wasn't your fault that we lost that fantasy football championship. He tied Saquon last year for the most 20-point per game for running backs, and he was literally always in the top 10 for weekly finishes. He never scored under 10 points. Like the first 4 or 5 weeks last year, he scored like 15, 16 points a game, and then he just didn't score below 20 for the rest of the year. Like, the thing is with Bijan Robinson, I love Bijan Robinson in fantasy because you literally know that he's going to give you 20. He's going to just go and score 20 points. Like, there's death taxes in Bijan Robinson scoring 20 points a week. I don't care who he's playing. Like, we know where that football is going, and is going to go to one of the most dynamic athletes we've seen at the position ever, and obviously behind one of the better offensive lines, in the NFL, and that talented of a running back. Shit is gonna shake. Shit is just going to shake. Period. I don't care about his heavy workload. These past 2 years, the motherfucker's young. He's going into year 3. If you have the first or the second pick, hammer Bijan Robinson. At the second running back, though, I might throw a little bit of a curveball on a lot of you guys. I'm going Christian McCaffrey as my second running back in fantasy football. Yes, last year was a disappointment for all owners, including me. I had him in one of my leagues, and I got like third to last. It was bad because I was really banking on Christian. But we know what he is when he's healthy. I don't give a shit that he's older. I don't give a shit that he's coming off the injury from last year. He had the full off season to fully come back. Even last year, he was getting a lot of volume when he was back, and he wasn't being the most efficient, but like still scoring at some points. He's going to be better than he was last year. And if he is near what we know from 2 years ago, who we know healthy Christian McCaffrey is, he is going to win your league if you have him. Probably. Because he is, I think, like, obviously, it's the injury question mark. You're either going to have a top 2 fantasy running back, or you're just not going to have your first round pick. And yeah, that is a very tough pill to swallow. But like, oh, championship could happen if you just draft Christian McCaffrey and he stays healthy. And that's if he stays healthy. I think that he could be the key, such a big key to a lot of people's championships this year, because he's going at around the end of the first round. But I think he's so much more valuable than that. It's just if he stays healthy. But I'm so willing to take that risk this year with Christian McCaffrey. I'm so willing to take that risk. And my number 3 guy, though, the guy who was number 1 last year, Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to put him as back-to-back number 1s because we all just know that if you're entering your age 28 season, you just, fantasy-wise, you start falling off. And we all know that if you're running back, you just can't be running back 1 in back-to-back years because it's just damn near impossible, it seems like, for a lot of these guys. But I think that Saquon can defy the odds in a sense, not in the sense that he can be the running back 1. He definitely can be. I don't think he will. Like, I don't think he's going to be the running back 1 again this year, but I think he's going to be a running back 1. I still think, the volume is obviously going to be there. He's still going to be behind that crazy good offensive line. He's still Saquon fucking Barkley. But like, I don't see him repeating the super historic year of last year, and I don't see him repeating that running back 1 year, but like, he's still going to be damn fucking good. I'm not saying he's going to bust every single week. I'm not saying that he's a bad pick. Like, if you're getting Saquon Barkley, you should be super happy. And I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, don't draft Saquon because he's not going to be the number 1 running back in fantasy football. Draft Saquon Barkley. He's gonna be fucking good. Like, don't if you're expecting him to be you can still expect him to be the number one running back in fantasy football. He might not be, but like, he's still gonna be fucking Saquon Barkley. He's still gonna be good. He's not gonna tank in value out of nowhere because he's a year older and he was statistically better than everybody else this year. Number 4 is gonna be Jahmyr Gibbs. I could have him higher. I was thinking about putting him higher, but since honestly complete bias, he broke my heart last year in the fantasy football championship, and I want to have him at number 4 because he cost me $500 in the worst way because he beat me. He had 7 games last year with 20 points. He real league winning upside, and that league winning upside really showed when Monty went down, and it was just the Jahmyr Gibbs show for the last 5-6 weeks of the season. Listen, he got a lot of the short yardage work at the end of the year. That's why he was producing so well last year near the end of the year. It's more of a thing. Will we see him get more red zone touches than Montgomery? Or will they still still give Montgomery the short yardage, most of the short yardage rolls, most of the red zone touches? Because the thing is, I feel like none of us is expecting that volume, that crazy volume that Gibbs had at the end of last year to continue, obviously, with Montgomery healthy. But, I mean, I feel like it's a question mark will it change? Will we see more Gibbs in short yard situations? Will we see Gibbs in more red zone situations just because he was so good in them last year? It'd be kind of stupid not to give him more opportunities there. I feel like you're still leaving a lot of points on the table by drafting Gibbs, obviously with them having Montgomery, but it's not something you should be losing sleep over. He's still going to be a running back 1. He's still going to be one of the best in the game, and that's why he's at number 4 in my rankings. At number 5, this is where he's going, Ashton Jeanty. I'm going Jeanty at number 5. This is the best running back prospect that I've seen with my own very 2 eyes. Seriously, he made Boise State watchable, and what I mean by watchable is extremely watchable and one of the most fun teams in college football last year because he was just Ashton Jeanty. I feel like Chip Kelly is going to utilize him and just give him the best, seriously, just the best chance to succeed. I mean, his offenses have turned LaShawn McCoy in past into fantasy superstars. Jeanty last year, he forced 151 missed tackles, caught 67 passes out the backfield. I feel like he's still gonna have a decent bit of PPR upside. He's projected to be a plus 1,200 yard rushing yard rusher. That kind of came out kind of shitty. This year, and I have him in my top 5. He's stepping into a backfield that he is going to be the workhorse. Nobody else is going to touch the football out of this backfield outside of Ashton. He does have those very exciting pass catching capabilities that should translate to a solid PPR floor. But rookie backs sometimes can struggle going into the NFL, even though they can struggle, but most of the times they don't. That is the one concern with Ashton Jeanty. Can a rookie make it happen? And yes, a rookie can make it happen. It's happened. Rookies are the best positions to have in running backs because rookie running backs they always have a tendency to explode. At the 6, I'm going Derrick Henry. He is still getting up there in age, but I don't think Father Time is going to slow him down all that much this year. He finished as RB4 last year, 1.9K rushing yards, 16 touchdowns. Even with Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson got his, and Derrick Henry got his. And this year in fantasy football, Lamar Jackson is going to continue to get his, and Derrick Henry is going to continue to get his as well. He's going to remain that, even at 31, just remaining the workhorse for Baltimore. They Baltimore always just remains among the league highest in rushing, and his near 70% snap share. There's we know that Derrick Henry's gonna get the fucking football week in and week out. Can he maintain though the production at 31? I feel like a lot of people are concerned that Derrick Henry will fall off the cliff, but we've never seen a football player like Derrick Henry ever. So it's tough to think about. And if I don't know if I will be drafting Derrick Henry. I still think he's gonna be damn good, but it just the age. I've always been super against drafting old players in fantasy football because I just feel like the risk outweighs the reward so much when it comes to age in fantasy football. But I'm not saying he's gonna be mad by any means. I'm probably gonna fade him. That means you might not. If you like a ground and pound running back in fantasy football, that Derrick Henry's your number one option. He's always gonna be the number one option. But that's however you like to play fantasy football. At number 7, I'm going to go Devon Achane. He finished as a PPR running back 1 last year, even in the worst scenario, just proving that it doesn't matter who is throwing the football for the Dolphins, who is out there. Like, Achane will get his because Achane is just a fucking dog. He's probably the best home run hitter in the NFL. And yeah, we all know home run hitter is an MLB term. But what I mean by home run hitter is who's going to break off long runs and score electric touchdowns. That's what I mean by a home run. His efficiency is absolutely absurd. And at this point, it's not even is this efficiency sustainable? It's just Devon Achane. That's just who he is. And he's been getting more and more involved in the pass game. He has a decently high floor because of the passes he catches out of the backfield. The thing is, he is a smaller guy and injury concern and whatnot, but I mean, he handled a full workload last year. I don't see why he can't do it again. At 8, I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor, who started off last year like extremely slow, and then just if you had Jonathan Taylor in your team on your team for the playoffs, I mean, he won your league because he just flipped the switch in the playoffs and absolutely turned up. As I said, there was some injuries here and there with the in the beginning of 2024, and when we saw him fully healthy, we saw Jonathan Taylor. He's entering this year fully healthy, so hopefully that's a breath of fresh air. He's still only 26 years old, guys. He's going to be hitting his athletic prime soon, and there's still very much there's still room to grow because he is only 26. He's going to be the focal point of their offense because at this point we don't know who's going to throw the football for the Colts. It's probably going to be Anthony Richardson, but Anthony Richardson's kind of like, I don't know, ass at football. I feel like Taylor's ADP has stayed around the same. I feel like how many games, because he did get injured last year, and then the year before that he missed a couple weeks of time as well. How many games are you expecting of a full workload for Jonathan Taylor? Uh, does his ceiling justify the risk over? Because he still is considered maybe a risk because he does miss time here and there. I mean, there are other safer options, but are you willing to take that risk with Jonathan Taylor? At 9, I'm gonna have Chase Brown, who was finished as the RB12 last year and was the RB6 like after week 8 or so, I believe, last year. He was a fucking dog for the Bengals last year, and even in the shitty situation that the Bengals are in, that they have to just throw the ball to Jamar Chase and T Higgins every single time. Like, Chase Brown still gets a lot of volume, and he's still a very good running back. Still gets work done with the touches that he has. He's projected to run for a little over 1,000 rushing yards this year and around 10 touchdowns. He's going to be running behind a revamped offensive line, and I feel like with Burrow healthy, with Chase Brown should obviously see lighter boxes than other running backs with Chase and with Higgins on on the outside. I feel like there's really nice value if you get him in the third round with Chase Brown because I feel like he could be a running back one. Thing is, does his lack of proven receiving chops does that cap his upside PPR wise? I don't think it will. I really don't think it will because I think Chase Brown is that good. At 10, I'm going to go Bucky Irving. And he is one of my fantasy sweethearts just because last year in one of my leagues, I didn't have any running backs. A lot of my running backs got injured, had no depth. And I had Bucky Irving on my bench, and he kind of just started exploding out of nowhere. And I mean, thank you, Bucky Irving. And the thing is, that might not even be the best we see of him because they might be talking about him like catching a shit ton of passes out the backfield. And now you're just adding so much more points through air yards and through just catching the ball. I feel like his ceiling is extremely high. His ceiling is definitely higher than 10. I like the 9 guys above him more, but oh, I really like Bucky Irving this year in fantasy, especially with an aging Mike Evans and a not so healthy Chris Godwin. Like someone's gonna have to produce for Tampa if those guys aren't, and it's gonna be that guy with the number 7 on his back in Tampa Bay if that does end up happening. At 11, I'm gonna go Alvin Kamara. He finished with 1,100 total yards and 9 touchdowns, and I feel like it's still whenever he's healthy, he's still catching 80 plus passes a year. He is getting older. He is aging. He is hitting that age 30 year, and he's still dominated though. The workload, the touches, the targets, even last year, even when he was still aging, and a lot of people were questioning if Kamara was still going to be good last year. The only thing is, would you rather take a younger guy that has potentially higher upside than a very safe guy with Alvin Kamara? Because Alvin Kamara, we know he's going to be around this 10 to 12 range, and he's going to explode. He's going to have like a 30, 40 point game once every year. And he's just going to be just an absolute solid 15 plus points a game because he's going to catch passes out the backfield and he's going to touch the ball a lot. We know who Alvin Kamara is. At 12, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs, who last year he had a really good second half stretch to that last season. The thing is with Josh Jacobs in fantasy, the reason why he doesn't rank any higher for me is I really do love me a good pass catching running back who's going to get me like 4 or 5 points a week because he's going to catch bullshit ass passes and go run them for like 2 yards a catch. But I mean, it's still a lot of points. Josh Jacobs literally provides none of that because he just doesn't catch the ball out the backfield. There's no PPR upside with Josh Jacobs at all. He provides a very consistent floor, somewhere around 100 rushing yards and a touchdown with chance of more. But like, no PPR value at all. He scored his first receiving touchdown of his career last year, and he's been in the league since 2019. Like, I don't want a running back if he's not catching passes because I'm gonna be so scared when I lose by 1 or 2, and I'm like, Jacobs could have had 1 or 2 more points if he just caught some little bullshit pass. At 13, I'm going Kyron Williams. I feel like Kyron Williams and Jacobs are very similar in the sense that like they have a very high floor. They're going to run the fuck out of that pill, but they're just not going to provide much pass catching, and that's okay for certain fantasy football players. He had 1,300 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns last year. Back to back 1,000 yard rushing yard seasons, and he just got paid. We all love drafting running backs in fantasy football who just got paid because we know that those guys who have paid have a secured role. And if he's been this bell cow for the past 2 years, getting over 1,000 yards and just touching the ball 25 plus times a game, we know what he's going to do this year. We know what Kyron Williams is going to do with just you're not really drafting Kyron Williams for upside because he's not catching a lot of passes, but he still can explode he can still sneakily drop 30 plus on you. I just feel like there's better upside with other players, but there's still some upside with Kyron. At 14, I'm going to go with Breece Hall. Had a very, very, very underwhelming year last year. Very underwhelming. Everyone thought that he had potential to be the running back one. And I mean, you could put it a lot on Aaron Rodgers absolutely killing that New York Jets offense. You could put it on some of that, but some of his struggles last year came from him. And I mean, it was a second year him coming off the ACL, so we thought that he was gonna be phenomenal, but he wasn't. He was disappointing last year, and I feel like he has the chance. Like he was still the running back two coming off 1 year off an ACL tear. He was still the running back two 2 years ago, and he's still super duper young. Why can't he repeat that? I love the value you're getting if you're drafting Brees Hall, but I don't know if that 2023 Brees Hall is still there. I don't know. I really hope it is. I hope because he had a couple good games last year. It was just wasn't very consistent. Also with Brees Hall, the concern with his upside, I feel like Justin Fields could steal a lot of not only rushing touchdown, but just rushing volume. We all know how much Justin Fields loves to use his legs, not only the scrambling and out of the pocket, but designed runs as well. That Justin Fields' rushing workload might cut into Brees Hall's, but I mean, we've seen who he is. We've seen what he can do and how he can perform in the past. Why can't he do it again? At 15, I'm going to go James Cook. James Cook last year, he would score like 16, 17 points a game. And like he had over 1,400 total yards last year. And like we all love to let James Cook. And he's still growing. Yeah, there's a question mark with him sitting out practices in his contract. But I'm not too concerned on that. I think that eventually something is going to end up getting done. He will be playing for the Bills at least this season. They did add Ray Davis last year, and he did touch up into a little bit of his workload, especially into the second half of the season. I still trust his red zone usage though, and I think the Bills last year they shifted more. I mean, we saw it 2 years ago when they fired their offensive coordinator and they started not just using Josh Allen's legs as a number one weapon and start letting James Cook. And then last year, really like doubling down on that, really emphasizing just letting James Cook and still using Josh Allen with his legs, but still balancing James Cook and Josh Allen's rushing and having them coexist that way. Um, he doesn't really get much red zone usage as you would like, just because Josh Allen does steal a lot of those red zone touches. But I think, do you think the Bills are going to shift to maybe using James Cook more in the red zone and maybe giving him more fantasy value? I just don't see a world where that's happening, just because Josh Allen with his legs is really a fucking dog in the red zone. Kenneth Walker is my running back 16. He has the home run hitting attribute that you just love your fantasy football running backs to have. But Zach Charbonnet was very, very solid for them last year, even when Kenneth Walker was healthy, and even when he wasn't healthy, Zach Charbonnet played very well. Uh, when he's healthy, he commands a lot of early down work, and he does command the goal line carries. You're not asking him to be a 3 down back, but he's still going to get his volume. Like Charbonnet will see the field, but I mean, Kenneth Walker is still the number one, and when he is healthy, he still is a dog. New offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb wants to run more tempo and really does believe in Kenneth Walker. It could increase more snaps for him. Uh, hopefully it will keep his yards per carry and his touchdown rate strong. It just will his injury history keep his snap share below 60%. Because I mean, I don't. It is quite questionable when you see that snap share be around that number. If it could be above 60%, I love what you're getting out of Kenneth Walker. It just will it be above or around 60%, or is it going to be below that? Because if it's below that, you're I don't RB16, you might not even be getting that return on RB16 value with Kenneth Walker. But it's just a thing of him staying healthy and him keeping his snap share up. And yeah, just understanding that Charbonnet will cut into his volume, pass catching wise, and he is going to get a couple carries there. But just overall believing that Kenneth Walker is the number one in this backfield, he will be healthy, and believing that if you draft Kenneth Walker, he will get his. Omarion Hampton goes at my number 17 for the Chargers. And especially with, I don't know what the fuck's going on with Najee Harris. I'm just going to talk about Omarion Hampton in my rankings. Uh, PFF projects Hampton, like they projected it before, like Najee Harris started jerking off fireworks. They already projected Hampton to pass him in the depth chart at some point this year. And he's amounted 2,400 yards after contact in the past 2 years in college football. And the Chargers haven't had an 1,000-yard rusher since 2017. I feel like Hampton can be the guy because Omarion Hampton is like that. The Chargers upgraded their offensive line. They got Malachi Becton, and they do have an elite offense with Jimbo, with Jim calling all the shots. And we know that the Chargers are a very run-heavy offense, so that just makes you smile even more thinking about Omarion Hampton. Thing is, as a rookie, can he handle the NFL workload? Like I said, I think it is. We do see a lot of running backs not be able to handle it, but more times than not, I feel like rookie and young running backs do step up to the plate and sometimes and exceed expectations and live up to those expectations as rookies and as young players at the position. I feel like I love drafting high risk guys in running backs because a lot of the time they do pay back that value if they're young. At 18, I'm going to go to Chuba Hubbard, who was around a top 5, top 7 guy in fantasy last year for the first half of the year. He had 6 games last year with at least 20 points, which I feel like a lot of people did not expect from Chuba Hubbard. I feel like why a lot of people were surprised from Hubbard last year was because a lot of people really did think that Jonathan Brooks was going to be important in Canales' offense last year, and just prayers up that he did get injured and that he will be missing this year. But I mean, Chuba got paid last year, and we know he's someone like there's no one else ahead of him in Charlotte. He is the running back one. He's going to get a lot of volume for them. Thing is he merely just a volume play more than anything? Because he was very underwhelming in the second half of last year because just the volume wasn't translating to points. Would you draft him as your running back 2, maybe even your running back 1, even though he does have the inconsistent label on him? Carolina's offense is young, and they are bringing in Ted McMillan, and they did struggle at the beginning of last year, the offense as a whole when Hubbard was playing his best. But I mean, they did play a lot better in that second half of the year, and he does get some receiving value, and that raises his floor. So I mean, Chuba Hubbard, he's gonna be around that round 5, round 6 range, and him and the guy I'm about to talk about next are perfect if you're drafting hero or zero running back, and you want a solid running back too, who is not going to lose your weeks. And the guy I'm talking about is the guy number 19, James Conner for the Arizona Cardinals. He has produced back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons and is just a goal line merchant, just a fucking dog in the red zone and the goal line specifically. In Arizona, they are a run-heavy first team, and he is the workhorse, and he is the beneficiary of that, thankfully. James Conner is one hell of a football player. He is a fucking dog. And he has been incredibly good for Arizona. I mean, I'm saying this as a Cardinals fan. He has been the most consistent part of our offense the past 2 years. And even though he is 30 years old, I still believe that James Conner if he's healthy, he's going to be James Conner, who is a top 12 fantasy running back who's still going to score fucking points. We know James Conner is just super duper consistent. And even though he's old, he's still just going to go score points. At 20, I'm going to have David Montgomery. Monty was really good last year for a lot of owners because even though Gibbs was, before Monty went down, still like a top 3, top 4 back in fantasy, Montgomery was still he was near the top 10. he just scores touchdowns. He is the red zone guy with the Lions. He just scores touchdowns in bunches. 13 total last year, even while missing time and with splitting time with Gibbs. He takes all the goal line work. His receiving upside obviously is very minimal. The past couple guys I've talked about, and a lot of the guys I don't know if you guys realize are just more floor over ceiling guys. I If you can't tell, I prioritize ceiling over floor, but we still got to talk about those floor guys. How many touchdowns can he score again? Hopefully, obviously, can he stay healthy because he went down and broke a lot of fantasy managers' hearts last year. But can can he still score those touchdowns in bunches? Can he still do that? Do you still view him as just a high floor guy? Because if you do, perfect value at RB20 in my opinion. That you can go ahead and pick him up. At 21, I'm gonna go with Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs. Last year he was like a second or a third round pick, and it's just that injury and just he did not look. And with Kareem Hunt still staying in town and him still gonna be getting a little bit of volume, um, he's just not as appealing as he was last year. He's still the Chiefs' lead back. He really still is, and he's still so much more explosive than anyone else in that backfield. But he is sharing work with other running backs in this backfield. This offense is getting back Marquise Brown from injury, and he could shift away targets. I mean, Rasheed Rice, I don't know how much time he's gonna miss, if he's gonna miss any time, but still, if he's there, that's still a lot of targets that are being taken away. Does the Chiefs committee enough touches to justify Isaiah Pacheco as like a running back too? Mm, It's tough. I don't even know with Pacheco this year. Pacheco, I don't like him this year. I really do not like him this year. He's a really big question mark for me. Just because we all know that Kansas City is just a mainly first air raid attack, and they do have a lot of like they use a lot of running backs. And it was last year was supposed to be the year that Pacheco took the keys as the running back one, but he didn't. And I don't know if they're going to give him that opportunity again this year. Travion Henderson at 22, I'm gonna have Travion Henderson of the New England Patriots. He is a big play guy. We drafted big play, and he could be a mid round target for a lot of guys who are looking for value in those middle rounds for running backs. He has a below 4.4 speed. The motherfucker is fast as hell. He's fast, and I just we didn't see a lot in college. What we did see was obviously it was a sight to be seen. But with his limited college workload, will that translate to a full NFL workload? When do you feel comfortable drafting him in round 7 when you question if he can handle the role? Like I said, I I like him just because I like him in that 6th or that 7th round if you can get him. Just because, like I said, if he busts and I draft him and he's just a bust for me, fuck it, I guess he's a bust. I'm trying to win championships, and that's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm always willing to take the risk with the rookie running backs and the young guns. DeAndre Swift, make sure I'm still recording, bro. DeAndre Swift lands at my number 23. And I mean, DeAndre Swift was solid last year. The only reason why I'm so caught up with DeAndre Swift is the fact that when he was with the Lions and he was projected to be the number one guy and projected to be this star that touches the ball 20 plus times and just is the focal point of an offense. Ben Johnson was in town, and then he kind of just gave a lot of the touches to Jamal Williams, and then DeAndre Swift kind of lost his role. He did lose his role, and he was very disappointing. And Ben Johnson's back in town with the Bears, but he was solid last year. He is an injury risk, but he is decently good at catching passes. Well, he provides a decent solid floor with that. It's just will is Ben Johnson going to continue hating DeAndre Swift? It's a question mark. If you feel comfortable drafting him with a scenario he's already been in similarly and that just didn't work out for him, go ahead by all means. But I don't think I'm gonna touch DeAndre Swift this year just because the whole Ben Johnson thing in the past just didn't work out, and I don't think it's going to work out again. I'm going to have Joe Mixon at 24, and to be honest, I'm not going to talk about Joe Mixon for a very long time. I'm going to talk about probably the reason why I don't want to talk about him longer than I will. But it's basically just he's dropping in drafts and still has high upside. So if he falls far enough into like the 6th round, like you could draft him because he could be a running back one that averages 20 points per game and wins you your fantasy league. But fuck Joe Mixon. I traded for Joe Mixon last year, right before the fantasy football playoffs. I forgot who I traded. I believe it was Breece Hall and James Cook, both of them combined for Joe Mixon. I had the running back. One of those, James Cook was on my bench. He wasn't playing. I had to flip him for somebody, and that was the position I needed to upgrade most on my team, in my opinion, because Breece Hall was ass last year. Um, and in the playoffs, I had to buy in the first round. He scored like 5 points. In the second round, he scored like 8 points, and then he scored another 5 points in the championship weekend. And I lost by 11 in the fantasy football championship. I scored 159 points. And Jahmyr Gibbs did beat me on like the last play. It was like truly heartbreaking. That last play, he scored a touchdown. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to get into it. And Joe Mixon scored 5 points and he was projected like 18. He just meets his projections. I'm $500 richer, and that $500 probably wouldn't be in my account now. But I mean, like the thought of $500 sounds extremely good. Fuck Joe Mixon. At 25, I'm gonna have Tony Pollard just because it's going to be an exciting offense with Cam Ward. Someone's gonna have to run the ball, and yeah, they do have Tajay Spears, but Pollard was solid last year, and I feel like they're still gonna give him a lot of love. That's my list. That's my list, guys. That's the list, and that's honestly the episode. Um, Adaptability is key in your fantasy football drafts. But touching up on the drafts, you you gotta have a draft strategy. But if you have that draft strategy, you gotta apply it and adapt with it. If that makes sense. Well, I can give you a baseline. Well, I can give you tips and tricks. Well, I can give you as much insight as possible. It's value shifts quickly, and you just focus on, instead of focusing on maybe players or individuals, focus on tiers, focus on groups of players instead of individualing players out, group players up, in my opinion. That helps you in drafts, in my opinion. And with your strategies, just whatever strategy you pick, whatever you feel most comfortable with, stick to it, and don't shy away from it in your draft. Because at that point, then you're just gonna fuck up your draft. If you go into a draft with like going, you want to do hero RB, and then by round 3 you just give up on that you're gonna fuck up your draft and you're gonna fall on your face flat. But I hope you guys really did enjoy me blabbering about fantasy football once again. We all love running backs, and in my opinion, running backs are the most valuable position in fantasy football and will always continue to be the most valuable position in fantasy football. And I feel like sometimes when your fantasy football league is just finding value late in rounds with running backs, because those value guys that just explode, they're diamonds in the rough, and you just hold on to them and don't let go, and they help you reach the top. Anywho, you guys, I should be coming out with other sorts of content, not on this channel. Just keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to be doing a lot of things recently, and I will be making another baseball podcast this week. I will also probably make a stand-up video talking about the Mets, because I just fucking can't with them anymore. I really I've tried, but even when it becomes a thing of this past week, it became a thing with the Mets. Oh, I'm gonna only turn them on if I want to, because I can't continue to put my emotions at stake for the New York Mets, because I'm too emotionally attached to them. But they keep just fucking with my emotions. Like, I turn on, they were up 5-0 today. I started watching the game, and then obviously they're gonna fucking lose, and I can't take it anymore. I need to get some things off my chest as a fucking fan. But that's something to do another day. I'm already getting mad doing that. So let's just cut the camera now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys whenever. Y'all stay safe.